Hello everyone, and welcome to the webinar on how to use Mathletics content with Year 9. I'm going to just jump into this Teacher Center like you normally would over here. I'm going to show you some content that's typically used in Year 9. So just sign in as a teacher, as you normally would, and I'll bring up the teacher homepage. When we get to the teacher homepage, you'll see there's 8 buttons that all can be used across Mathletics. The one I'm going to talk about today is this one over here called Workbooks. If I just jump into there, you'll notice a few things. You'll notice that going down the left here are a sequence of series. That sounds very mathematical. Each of those series is just given a letter rather than a year group because if a student's in Year 8 but requires some Year 7 revision, we don't want that book to say Year 7 on it because we don't want to demotivate that student. So it's just a little code to make sure that we know the level of the content without it being openly obvious to who's reading it, which level it's in. Typically, Year 9 is our Series J content that's taught in most curricula. So if you just look over here, we've got a series of books. This is Series J. These are the book titles going down left and the right for the teacher, which are solutions to the questions in those books. I might just explain a little about the books quickly. Each of these books is divided into 4 main sections. A basic section, which deals with the very fundamentals of the concept. A knowing more section, which tackles the knowledge, the more meat areas of the concept and what the concept's about. A using our knowledge section, which is the application and some real-world application. And thinking more, which is higher order reasoning, maybe start with the answer, find the question, just a little bit more higher order thinking in terms of the typical content that we're looking at. So in this case, we're talking about indices. That's another thing about these books, is they're not one big textbook for each year. They're grouped into separate modules, and they really do take you from, like I said, the very basics right into the more complicated parts of that content. So as the teacher, what I can do now is I can either grab the whole indices book or any other book just by clicking on the complete link at the bottom of those, and I could save that PDF if I wanted to. I could get just the basics. So if I've got kids who are in Year 8 who I think are smart enough to start doing the very beginning of this topic, I can click on the word basics over there and get just the basics part of that book, which I can open up. So that's going to open up for me over there. Then I can go down even further. I can get a specific heading. Ooh, there we go. So that's the basics. That's opened up for me, the PDF that I can scroll through. Students can use this on their computer. Students do have access to these via the Student Center too. I'll show you how to get to those also. So I'll just close that quickly, and I can get straight down to the page I'm after. So as a teacher, I can really get the whole book, a section of the book, or even just a specific page that I need. That's all there for me, easy to use. What I am going to show you, this is the PDF of that page I opened. I opened page 3. What I want to show you over here also is on this side, related to, I should mention first, sorry, beg your pardon, that each of these 4 sections ends in a small assessment of questions. There's not 3,000 questions. There's probably about 8 to 12 questions in each section. They've been carefully thought out to make sure that we cover all the aspects in each of the sections of the workbook. And they've also been scaffolded from most easy to most difficult. So although there's fewer questions, there's about 12 or so, they've been very carefully thought out, and they're very educationally valuable. Of course, for more practice, our site with our activities offers endless practice with new questions all the time and instant feedback and support. So that's all there for the students. Over here on the teacher side of things, the teacher is provided with the solutions, while the students provide with just the answers. So for example, the student would receive something like x equals 5, whereas the teachers would receive the full solution to an equation. What I also want to show you over here is our interactives. So we've got a couple of guys at Mathletics who are black belts in GeoGebra, which is an open source, free, interactive maths program. And I'll show you what we've done is you don't have to know anything about GeoGebra to use this, or even have it installed on your computer. What we'll do is, I might do that again just to explain. This is an interactive related to page 3 of this workbook over here. So when I open this up, I'm going to see that exact page, right? That's page 3 of that workbook, which you would have in the PDF. but it's now, I can now interact with that page. So that content is no longer static anymore. As a teacher or a student, I can now interact with that content. And so I can change them. I'm now in control of the maths that's on screen. So this is great for a teacher in front of a classroom, or a student learning at home, or students in group work, to take control over what they're learning and see how they can interact with the maths. So that's what makes these books quite different, is they're not typical standard static content books. You are in control of what's over there, or the student's in control. So that's really up to you how you use it. There are many different ways that all teachers can use it, and you know your kids best and how they'd learn best. So I might show you a few others of these. Oh, here's a nice one, perimeter and area. So if I just open this perimeter book, again, sorry I did that very quickly. This is the perimeter and area book, right, which of course you can open the whole book as a PDF over there. You can get the basics or the knowledge section as you please, whatever you're after, or get a specific page from one of those sections as before. So all the workbooks work like that. Then on the right, on this side, we've got the interactives. So I can open up this perimeter of shapes interactive over here. And this is, again, this is what page 2 of the book looks like. It's not something that looks like page 2. It is page 2. And that's what, again, what makes this very powerful is all this interactive stuff over here is in context of what they're learning. Students don't have to go anywhere else to reprocess this information. They can just interact with their own book themselves. And as you can see over here, we've got 3 shapes, the same 3 shapes that were there before, but they're now not static. So I can now change the size of the square and watch how the perimeter is affected over here. Just like that. Simply enough, on the right, we've got a rectangle whose I can change the length, and I can change the breadth to make it a square even, and I can see how that affects the perimeter down here. And of course there's a rhombus, which again, it can show that the skewness doesn't change the perimeter. So again, the student's now in control. After they've used something like this, we find that students really they need very minimal instruction from a teacher or from anywhere else, because they're in control and they can see what they're doing and they kind of pick it up instantly within 30 seconds, we've seen before. So, and here's another one down here at the bottom. So this is to do with circles and semicircles. So I can change the radius of the circle and step through the circumference at my own pace over here. And of course, I could change the radius at any point in that process to see how the perimeter or the circumference is affected. And the same with the semicircle. I can step out the calculation at my own pace, just like that. And at any point of that calculation, I can change the radius over here to see how that will affect the perimeter. So those are quite nice. We've got, many, many more. I might show you a few more of these. This is our interactive content. Just going to see what's in this one. Oh yes, so this is, of course, the classic simultaneous equations between 2 straight lines, where to find the point of intersection. So again, this is page 23 of the Equations and Inequalities book. From the interactive side, again, the Equation and Inequalities book broken into the same 4 sections as before. I can get the whole book, just a section or a particular page that I'm after in PDF form, which I can save to my hard drive or email to students, although the students do have access to this themselves. And on this side, I can grab the PDF solutions to all of these questions. So if I want the solutions to the knowing more questions, I just get the knowing more solutions, which are just here. So if I jump into the interactive for Equations and Inequalities, which is on page 23, so page 23, the PDF or the book would look exactly like this. This is it. And I interact with this example. I'm now faced with dynamic content instead of static content. So here's the same equations that were there before. I can now drag this up and down and watch that line change. And also I'm watching the maths change here as a student or a teacher, and taking note of how when the lines are different, the solution's different, because the equations of those lines differ. And I'm in control as a student or a teacher of what's happening. And as a teacher, you wouldn't have to draw 3 or 4 separate examples on the board over again. you would just have to move these around. And the effect on learning is much more instant and a lot more powerful than having to recreate things rather than just dynamically move them around within their textbook that they get with Mathletics. So it's all there and all together. There's other great ones over here. The very beginnings of coordinate geometry. We can see over here we've got the distance between points on horizontal or vertical lines from the coordinate geometry book. This is page 3 in this case. We're going to interact with this page, and I can step through the process of finding the distance between points. So I've got the vertical line and the horizontal line, which I can change. I can change its length and see how that's affected over here. And I can change the vertical length too and see how that's affected over here. So really again, oh, and here's a point that I can move around on this vertical line. So really, I can see the distance that I'm in control of. Down here, we've got perhaps that's not on a vertical or horizontal line, but rather the distance formula, which of course, as a teacher, I can step out at my own pace, or a student at my own pace, or at my student's pace. I could step through. You can see the answer beginning to appear here in the process. So what I've got to do over here is I can move these points around and see how that point changes over there. And of course, if I change these points, I can see the X and the Y, the horizontal and the vertical sides of the perpendicular of the right angle triangle, and so I can see how that affects the distance between A to B using the distance formula graphically, instantly, and dynamically, something that I'm in control of over here. So that's quite a nice one. Of course, I could even, if I wanted to, start a brand new example over here, change these points before I start, and then step out through the problem. If you didn't want to just change them all and watch all the maths change, you could change it at any point of the process. So if I did that over there, when I step this out, the maths will change accordingly. So that's quite nice. So that's how we could learn the distance formula. There's more over here, of course. So graphing straight lines. This is how you would graph a straight line. So this is, again, in the linear relationships book, which I pulled that from. Linear relationships. There's an interactive over here called graphing straight lines. This is the page in the book. In particular, it's page 19. This is what page 19 looks like once I interact with this content over here. I can see the same question, but of course I can go through it at my own pace. So here's some X values over there, and I'm stepping through to get the Y values over there. I'll do that again. And that passes through, and that plot those points, and a line comes. So I can do that as slow or as fast as I like, both as the teacher and as the student. And of course, I can even change these X values to see how they would change the points on the line. You can see that those points are always on the same line, which makes mathematical sense, right? Which is what we want them to see. So I could start again from the beginning, change the X values over here, and I would find that I eventually get the same straight line from plotting those points. So again, very, very nice way for students to visually learn how this works. And this is great for your visual learners to have to see things, your kinesthetic learners that need to do things to learn. This really addresses all of those things. So we want to encourage teachers to use these as much as possible. Hence the webinar. So it's good to have you all with me. Here's another great one. So in the polygons and angles book, we try to do this everywhere. We're rolling out video to go with these interactives because we've come with some great video ideas. So again, this is in the polygons and angles book. It's an interactive of page 4. It's just how to draw a regular polygon with a certain amount of sides. So in this case, a hexagon. So if I interact with that, I can see over here that I can step through that process at my own pace on how to draw that shape, how to construct it. And of course, I can change the shape at any point of the process. So I could start with a pentagon and then step through a pentagon like that. Or I could go back to the beginning and start again with an octagon, and out comes the octagon eventually. Or I could change the shape in the middle of the process to see how that would affect it. These are nice to run investigations or discussions, or just student self-directed learning when they're learning by themselves to take control of their content. What we've also included is some related interactives. So over here we've got, so if you do have GeoGebra and are interested, or your students interested, or you'd like to get your students interested, or you'd like to have an investigation on how that was created, because often when you design the framework of that interactive, you've actually learned maths. So this is a little video over here that if I play, it's going to show me how that interactive was designed from the beginning using GeoGebra. So you can see that this is just a screencast of how that was created, and at the same time that I'm watching it over there, I actually have a little GeoGebra interface here that I can actually follow along and do as I watch the screen. So that's really nice. So now I can do exactly what they're doing, and so I'm learning while watching how to use, not only how to use GeoGebra, but I'm learning the framework behind the maths, the interesting things behind the interactive, getting a behind the scenes look into Mathletics, because we don't want to hide these things. These are all educationally valuable. We want to include as much of it as we can. Also, so I'm just going to pause there, we've got a related interactive that's not necessarily exactly what we were talking about, but this is a bit of lateral learning. So you can see that for regular polygons, this is about their external angles and how those change depending on what shape we're looking at. So again, this is lateral learning. This takes us sideways instead of vertically through the content, and it's something related that's close enough and nice. So we've included those in as much as we can. Also, you could download that file and say that GeoGebra, which you could pull up as a separate file outside of the book if you thought you wanted to do that. So we've made it possible to download these GeoGebra applets to have them separate to the workbooks. So yeah, so over there. So I mean, I encourage you to go look through all these interactives. There's lots more. They start here in Series H, which is typically content taught in Year 7. They start in Series H with some interactives. They're all over here. You can see some over there, and then they go all the way up through to Series M, which is our Year 12 stuff. So we've included them everywhere in secondary. We're going to have them starting from Year 5. We started to develop those, but at the moment you can find them in Year H and up. There are hundreds. I would encourage you to go look through as many as you can to see what they do and you know, discover ways for your students to learn, because they're all very exciting visual ways to learn. So that's all from this introduction of how to use these GeoGebra applets and integrate the interactivity into your lessons if you want to. So I encourage you to go have a look and learn for yourself what's there. Thank you for joining me today. Hope you have a great day.